Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 5 of the Wildcard Draw. I'm Matty Egan. Tonight we explore tsunamis, one of the world's most deadly natural disasters. Entire coastlines can be transformed in minutes, with waves that carry unimaginable force and leave behind devastation on a massive scale. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to pay tribute to all the lives that have been lost to tsunamis around the world. These tragedies have left families and communities changed forever, and it's important we remember them as we step into this story. The word itself, tsunami, it sounds almost poetic, gentle, like something you'd whisper on the edge of the sea. But the reality of what it represents is anything but gentle. The word comes from Japan, tsu meaning harbour, and nami, meaning wave, harbour wave. And that translation alone tells you something. The Japanese knew the waves are killers of harbours. A place of safety for sailors and fishermen suddenly became traps when these immense walls of water came crashing in. For centuries, the Japanese recorded these events in their history. Whole coastal towns swept away, families gone in an instant. To them, tsunamis weren't just natural disasters. They were reminders of how fragile human life is when faced with the raw power of the earth. In the West, for a long time, people mistakenly called them tidal waves. But that's wrong. Tides are controlled by the moon. Predictable, rhythmic, safe. Tsunamis are born from violence, from earthquakes, from volcanoes, from the sudden shifting of the earth itself. They have nothing to do with the tides, and everything to do with destruction. So when you hear the word tsunami today, it carries the weight of centuries of fear, survival, and respect for the sea. So what actually causes a tsunami? Tsunami isn't just a big wave. It's not like the kind of surf you see rolling into Bondi Beach or Hawaii. A tsunami is something far more powerful and far more terrifying. When an undersea earthquake strikes, when a volcano erupts beneath the ocean, the entire sea floor can suddenly shift. Imagine lifting an entire slab of the ocean floor, or dropping it down by just a few meters. That sudden movement displaces all the water above it. And when you displace that much water, it has to go somewhere. The energy radiates outward, not just as one wave, but as a whole train of waves, travelling across the ocean at the speed of a jet plane, up to 800 kilometers an hour. Out in the open ocean, you might not even notice it. The wave height could be less than a meter, almost invisible to ships. But as those waves race towards island land, the ocean floor becomes shallower and the energy compresses, forcing the water upward into towering walls. What was once harmless ripple in the deep ocean can become 10 metre, 20 metre, even 30 metre walls of water at the time it slams into the coast. And before you think, wow, that sounds like a surfer's dream, let me just say, this isn't the kind of wave even Bodie from Point Break would paddle into. He wanted the perfect ride, not the end of civilization. And here's the kicker. Tsunamis don't just hit once, they come in sets, sometimes lasting for hours. The first wave might not even be the biggest. In many disasters, it's the second and third wave that does most of the damage. This is why coastal communities are so vulnerable. You can have the best warning systems in the world, but when the earth itself shifts beneath the ocean, you have minutes, sometimes only seconds, to react. And once that energy is in motion, there's nothing stopping it. Throughout history, tsunamis have struck with devastating force. one of the most infamous was the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. A massive undersea earthquake off the coast of Sumatra triggered waves that tore across 14 countries. Entire coastlines were swallowed, cities flattened, and over 230,000 lives were lost in just a few hours. It remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history. Then, in 2011, Japan was shaken by the Tohoku earthquake. The tsunami that followed reached heights of over 40 metres in some places, wiping away towns, taking nearly 20,000 lives, and setting off the Fukushima nuclear crisis. It was a tragedy that stunned the modern world, and it proved that even the most prepared nations remain vulnerable. If we go back further, in 1883, the eruption of Krakatoa unleashed waves that killed more than 36,000 people. And in the year 1700, an event on the Cascadia subduction zone sent a tsunami racing across the Pacific. Japanese records describe a mysterious orphan wave that arrived with no local earthquake, proof that just how far and wide these waves can travel. These disasters don't just live in history books, they've shaped culture, memory, and even cinema. In 2012, a film that was made based on the events in the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. It starred Ewan McGregor, Naomi Watts, and a young Tom Holland, long before he became your friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. The film is called The Impossible, and it captures the terror, the heartbreak, and the resilience of a family caught in the middle of one of the greatest tragedies of our time. Let's take a moment to revisit that story. That was one family's survival story, captured by Hollywood. But outside the cinema, the reality was far darker. Tsunamis don't just take lives, they take everything. Homes, schools, hospitals, entire communities. They sweep away not just the present, but also the future those people were building toward. And when the water finally recedes, the danger doesn't end. Floodwaters leave behind dirt, debris, and contamination that can make clean water almost impossible to find. Illness spreads quickly, and people who survived the wave are now facing a second disaster, one of sickness and hunger. For governments, the challenge is overwhelming. Imagine having to rebuild hundreds of kilometres of coastline from nothing. Roads, power, clean water, housing, all gone in minutes. Even the strongest economies struggle. Japan, with all its preparedness and resources, is still rebuilding more than a decade after the 2011 disaster. For developing nations, the burden can feel almost impossible without international aid. And beyond bricks and mortar, there's an invisible cost: the trauma. Children will no longer sleep through the night. Families terrified of the ocean that once fed them. Whole communities living with a constant shadow. A tsunami is not just an event, it's a wound that lingers for decades. But even in the middle of all that devastation, there are stories of survival. Stories that remind us just how strong the human spirit can be. In Thailand, during the 2004 tsunami, a supermodel by the name of Petra Nemkova clung to the top of a palm tree for hours, badly injured, while the waves tore through the resort around her. She was eventually rescued, and her story became a symbol of endurance. There are countless tales like that. Families separated by the waves, somehow finding each other again days later. Villages that were spared because someone recognised the warning signs. The ocean pulling back unnaturally, animals fleeing inland, and raised the alarm. People ran for higher ground, and the entire community survived because of quick thinking. And sometimes it comes down to nothing more than instinct. A father scooping his child onto his shoulders and running without looking back. A stranger pulling someone else onto a rooftop. Moments of courage that turn tragedy into survival. These stories remind us that while nature's power is overwhelming, so too is the will to live. They show us that even against impossible odds, hope can still rise from the water. So the question is, where could the next one strike? The truth is, scientists can't predict the exact time or place of the next tsunami, but we do know the danger zones. Some of them are the most heavily populated coastlines on Earth. The Pacific Ocean is surrounded by what's called the Ring of Fire, a chain of fault lines and volcanoes stretching from South America up to North America, across to Japan, Indonesia, and down to New Zealand. Every year this region produces earthquakes large enough to trigger tsunamis, and history tells us it's not a matter of if, but when. One of the most closely watched areas is the Cascadia subduction zone, just off the north coast of the United States and Canada. Scientists warn that a massive quake could send a wave towering into places like Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver. Entire modern cities could be at risk in a single event. Then there are theories about the Canary Islands. If a section of the island of La Palma were to collapse into the Atlantic, some scientists believe it could send a mega tsunami across the ocean, striking the east coast of the United States and parts of Europe. And of course, countries like Japan, Indonesia, and Chile live with the risk every single day. These nations sit on the front line of tectonic activity. And while their warning systems and preparations are some of the best in the world, nature has its way of reminding us that we are never fully in control. Tsunamis don't just belong in history books. They are a part of our present and very likely our future. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and I hope it was informative. I highly recommend the film The Impossible if you'd like a powerful look at what surviving a tsunami is really like. And if you'd like to help communities affected by tsunamis and other natural disasters, please consider supporting organisations like the Red Cross and UNICEF, who provide vital aid when these tragedies occur. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.